Hey guys, my name is Kirk, and I run a small side business called the Man Cave Medic, and I service pinballs, jukeboxes, arcades, anywhere from the EM style, which is what we're looking at. This is a 1961, I believe, Chicago coin long range bullseye gallery. So EM games all the way to modern video games to pinball machines. So, but anyways, I got this game in this week. I'm also on Clove, Killer List of Video Games, MC35, and recently I've been on that forum for the EM games quite a bit, and there's been some small discussion about troubleshooting and making videos and things like that. So I figured, you know what, I got this game in this week. Thanks to Adam Zero on Clove, I kind of got the bug to get an EM game, a gun game. I've had a couple of EM pins before, but never a gun game. So anyways, because of the recent EM spice in my life, I'll call it, I kind of wanted to make a video. I've been thinking about this for a while. So this video is primarily about EM troubleshooting using schematics. I'm not going to get into cleaning contacts, what you should use, what you shouldn't use. I'm not going to get into the right grease for the roto wheels, the gappings on switches, or anything like that. All this video is about is I'm trying to focus on how to look at a schematic, understand it, and correlate it with the game. So I'm just using this this game as the opening, I guess, opening scene for this, because I do have the schematic for it, and it's going to be a little easier for me to correlate things based off of this game. So really cool game, but we're going to walk away from it and we're going to start looking at the schematic, and we're going to talk about a few things. So disclaimer here, I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence. I know there's a lot of smart Joes out there that get into this hobby, and that's kind of how I did it. I've been working on electronics for over 20 years, but I really like troubleshooting just as much as playing these games. So I kind of wanted to break it down and show my aspect. So I know everybody's got their own technique. This is just a video on my technique, what I do, and so far it's worked for me. So we're going to go through this. So if I'm insulting your intelligence, I apologize. But let's start kind of looking at a schematic, how to break it down, what does what, and how it correlates. So not to get too deep in the weeds here, but these are lights. It says right there, lower display lights. We've got a missed shot motor right there. The coils are the heart of this game. Anybody that's worked on, we'll say video games, anybody that's done any kind of computer programming, any kind of ladder logic, understands that, hopefully you'd understand that this is old school. This is relay control, and if you can understand this, you can pretty much fix any problem that pops up on these EM games. One way I like to look at EM games and EM troubleshooting is similar to computer programming. Each coil is meant to do a certain thing, and sometimes these coils represent, if you can think of it in terms of computer programming, if-then statements. And that's the same way relay ladder logic is built. Is, for instance, you've got this animal control relay. So this thing is going to fire if you've got power coming on one side right here and power coming on the other. So you take your two sides of power, you apply it to that relay, bam, it's going to fire. So how do you get there? One side is connected almost all the time. If you look on the left side of this schematic, most schematics are built the same way, where your left side is going to be your power constant. The other side is going to be through a series of switches. Those would be your if-then statements or while type statements if you're into computer programming. So I'll try not to talk too much about computers and programming, but it's an easy way to correlate if that's what you're used to. So any one of these coils would work for what we're talking about. So for this animal intermediate control relay, we got power coming in on this side, and the only way to get this thing to fire is have power coming in on this side. And you notice we got a brown wire, goes to the shot disc, or shot unit disc, as long as this wire is connected through the shot unit disc, then you're going to have continuity and it's going to fire. So let's talk about these bold lines. I'm just flipping this thing over. So you see a series of bold lines on the outer edges of almost at least every EM schematic I've looked at. There's a series of bold lines. Those bold lines represent your incoming power. This is AC, so we're not talking, positive and negative. We're just talking both sides of the power. If we're talking DC, we'd be talking, in similar terms, negative versus positive, and the like. But you'll also notice when you're looking at your schematic, on those bold lines, you'll see colors. Okay, for instance, this one's green, and on this side, we got white. Your solid colors on EM schematics are your incoming power. Okay, there's no switching or anything to get that power. In terms of transformers and things like that, your white comes in through a fuse out one side of the transformer. Same with your green. Your green is the other side, which comes directly out of the transformer. There's no switching, just like in pinball machines. If you've ever worked on those, you got switched power, things like that, ground switching. So your bold lines are your solid power. And essentially, when I look at these, I try to isolate it down to make it easier for myself. I try to imagine to get this coil to fire. In order to do that, I imagine this contact isn't even there. So I've got green on one side, white. Well, this one goes through gray, which if you flip it over, you follow that gray wire. We're still in the gray all the way up through the game over, normally closed contact, to the start, normally closed contact, right back into your white. So you've got to be able to follow that kind of stuff. I may have flipped it a little quick on you, but we'll start out here again. Different coil, doesn't really matter. One side is power, comes through the gray, which ties right to the white. So as long as these two coils are normally closed, which they are, that's your start relay and your game over relay, then you're going to have power on this side. And that holds true with every one of these. So one thing to think about, if you're having multiple issues, multiple things aren't happening right, if the game's not working at all, you've got to look at your power side. Whether it's a white wire or a green wire. Just check that down at the power supply, at the transformer, fuses, that kind of stuff, and that'll point to that. If you're having one or two issues, for instance, the ball count unit, it's not keeping track of the balls, I keep thinking pinball. For this gun, shot count, we'll call shot count the same as ball count. So if your shot count unit's not working, then you got to look at specifically that shot count relay. If you're shooting at an animal in a gun game and a specific animal isn't working, you've got to look at that specific issue. So we've kind of talked about solid lines. They're typically your power coming in, and they're a solid color. So your solid lines, solid colors. Now let's look at, let's find one that's not too crazy here. I'm looking for the left clown trip. We're going to stick with the left clown trip coil, all right? So in order to get this thing to fire, we already agreed that the gray wire ties into the white. So we're going to, for this, video, we're going to pretend that gray is directly connected to the white right there, okay, through those contacts up there. So we got power coming in there, but let's simulate that this clown trip relay is not working. So what do? All right, so all I do is I forget everything else on that schematic. There's nothing else on the schematic. This is my only problem, okay? I look at these, okay? Right here, if you look, like there's a R-G, Y-R. Those are your colored wires, okay? Red and green. So it's a red wire with a green dash. Depending on the manufacturer, they may have used a red wire with a green wrap. So it really depends on what you're working with. With these, I know it's like a little bitty hex line about that thick. So it's a red wire with a little green dash inside the wire. And that's going to help me identify the right wire going to this. So power comes in here and it's not firing. Why isn't it firing? Okay, left clown relay contact. This is normally open contact. So for whatever reason, there's more series down the road that this left clown relay would close. As soon as that closes, it ties into right here, and you've got that left clown trip coil activates. So if this is your issue, which like I said, we're simulating here for lack of problems, but if that is your issue, you need to go identify this guy right here. You've already got power on the other side, so the only other spot that's a weakness is this left clown relay contact. One side is red and green, the other side of that contact would be green, because right there we see green. When you see these little bumps, all that is saying is that in the schematic they didn't want to intend to, or they didn't want to make you think that those wires are connected. So when you see those bumps, that's just saying, hey, they're not connected at all. It's just running to somewhere else due to print size or whatever. So this wire right here that's running up and down is not connected whatsoever to this wire that runs that way. So that's just kind of a basic rundown of the schematics as far as the power comes in. Your coils, they're activated by something. Some coils are activated by a multitude of switches, and you've got to be able to identify those switches. One problem that I was looking at earlier was the extended play control relay. We had a white coming in here, and essentially this should run all the way over to that green. If you omitted everything else, connected that green to this side, then that relay should fire, okay? It wasn't. What the problem was, it had to do with down in here in these jacks, but you can see that there's a series of contacts that run through there in order to make continuity. And remember what I said earlier on, continuity is the trick. That's how I look at these things. If you don't have continuity from here to the green when the conditions are met, and what I mean by that is as green comes in, you should have continuity through these conditions. And in this case, to simplify it, this game has an option where if you score 4,000 points, 4,100, 4,200, 4,300, it goes into extended play, just like an add-a-ball or a replay on pinball. So I had this set up to 4,000 points. So when the score unit, and we'll go back over here for simplicity's sake, you can see that's at 8110. I ended up fixing that problem, but it wasn't video worthy. So when this game is set up for 4,000 points or higher, if you look down here, let me take my headlamp off and kind of shine on this. Extended play adjustment jack, 4,000, 41, 42, 43, 44. If you have that jack right back there set up for that, then if you get those points at the end of the game, it'll give you like a free game basically. So that was my issue, but it was simply because not all of these were making continuity, so I cleaned them up with some sandpaper, and now we're, and that was 1,000 grit, by the way, and now we're good to go. So I'm just referring to that one because I know there was a lot involved in identifying those. So you've got the relay, you've got normally open switches, you've got a cam here that's a normally closed switch, you got a score reset relay, those jacks that I just showed you right there, through the score units, the 100 through 900, and 1000 through 900, or 9000, correction. So I don't know if this is helping, but this is kind of how I break things down. First thing I do, identify, all right, what is the problem? All right, it's not doing X. whatever that is. If it's an animal's not dropping down, then I go directly to the coil that's supposed to make that happen. From that point, you can omit the rest of the schematic for all practical purposes. You can omit the rest of the schematic and just look at that line and pretend, like I said earlier, if you're a computer programmer, pretend that's a line of code. All right, so left coin or left clown trip coil. There's only one thing on that one, so that one's simple. Just look at that switch. If that switch is making continuity, and sometimes it looks as if it's closed, but you know what? That's where the tools of the trade come in. That's this guy right here. I couldn't do my job without this. Everybody's got a different multimeter. Some use the flukes, yada yada. But for EMs, I use this guy. This actually does some bench testing. I can check transistors. I can check pretty much everything with this. But that's the main setting I put it on. That's for continuity, okay? OL is out of limits. Not a big deal. The other things that I keep, I actually wear these around my neck while I'm troubleshooting, because then I can just snag them at any point in time. But you can clip those onto the contacts of the switches pretty easy. So first thing I do with these guys, if I want to check continuity, I just test them. I make sure that the wires are still intact, yada yada. But when you're checking continuity, and what I mean by that is going back to this left clown trip relay. If I want to check continuity when this puppy's closed, I'm going to go to one side and the other side. When it's closed, I should get something very similar to that right there. I'm kind of trying to do this one-handed here. So that right there is continuity in my opinion. Alright, you know what else is continuity? Here's a coil out of a cocktail pinball that I've got. So this is a little different. So if you're solely using your multimeter to check this, and all you're doing is listening, that can throw you off. What I mean by that is a lot of flukes, and even this multimeter will measure up to 50 ohms and still give you that beep. Okay? I'm trying to do this one-handed, but if you look at... Oh boy, this is tricky. Okay. Yeah, this is tough to do. Wait one. Alright, we're back. So, I was having a tough time doing that one-handed, so what I did was I basically just took some alligator clips, clipped it onto the leads of that coil, and then just ran it right to my meter, which is what I do when I'm troubleshooting anyways. So, but I wanted to show you that even though you hear that beep, okay, this is a coil. I've had it's just been sitting around here, but you can see I'm just going straight to there, and you hear the tone, all right? But a coil, you're gonna get like 3 ohms. You could get anywhere from 3 to 50 ohms on these multimeters. Most multimeters will give you that continuity tone all the way up through, and by the way, I just disconnected it. They'll give you that tone all the way up through 50 ohms. So when you're doing continuity checks, not only is it important to listen for the tone, but if it's questionable, look at the meter, because if it's 30 ohms, that's not good continuity. That means you've got some corrosion, some carbon buildup on the contacts, or you're just plain old looking through one of these coils, because these coils are typically in the very low resistance area, just like I showed you with that coil. So, but the next thing I do, going back to this left clown trip relay, I'm going to put my meter in front of there, and I'm going to simulate the best I can. So left clown trip coil. So we've got, we're going to say that we've got continuity from, see where the black lead is, from this side all the way over to the gray. So we know that's good. Our next question is, all right, this guy's not firing. There's no power coming into it. So what do? So we want to check continuity from one side of the coil to the switch, and that's a red and green. So your color is going to be the same from that left clown relay contact to here is going to be red and green. So all you got to do is take them, clip those leads, just like I showed you. Clip one right here and one right here. Connect them to your two leads and check continuity. And that at that point you should have, very similar to that, 0.7, 0.6, somewhere in there. If you don't, you got to break in the wire or you're reading through something else. Okay, if you do, then you know continuity is obviously good from here to here. Okay, so that part of the line is good all the way up to there. Next thing to do is check from this side to this side. And once that's closed, whatever makes that switch closed, it should be good. So same thing, you put, I'm just simulating going directly across that switch. So put one clip lead on one side, one clip lead on the other side, make sure the switch is activated, and you should have close to that 0.3, 0.7, whatever it is. If you don't, then go ahead and clean your switch, check the gapping, bend it if you have to a little bit, and there you go. So if you do have continuity from across that switch just like that, then most likely your issue is from this side of the switch all the way over to there. So you figure that out. If you've got continuity from the green side, remember this whole wire is green. Okay, it doesn't say that anywhere, does it? No. The reason you know it's green is because it's tied right to this bus. This is the green bus, and that green wire is all over this game. So green comes in right here, goes to this side of the switch. When the switch closes, right there, green's still coming over. Green is connected to this red and green, and then it should go right to that coil, and bam, fire. So I don't know if that helps. I'm looking for feedback. I'm not, I don't know. I don't do too many videos, but this is kind of my take on it. So that's kind of how I look at schematics. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to the machine, look for this left clown trip coil and the left clown relay, and see if we can correlate the two together. So stand by and we'll be right back. Alright, and we're back. So we were looking at the left clown relay. Very simple circuit, but to show you kind of a correlation what we're talking about, it's this guy right here. He's the left clown. Okay, we're simulating that he didn't work, and we're trying to troubleshoot that. So in that schematic, we got the trip coil, trip relay, which this part of the noise the motor makes. Still got some work to do on that, but that coil right there is the coil in question. If you notice underneath, it's labeled left clown trip coil. So that's the coil we're after. You also notice a part number. So if you need to order that coil, a lot of times they're labeled right underneath it. So we're going to take that and go around back, and remember that what we're talking about, left clown trip coil. We're looking for a red and green wire going to the left clown relay, which goes to green. So let's see if we can see this. So you remember that guy right back there? He's what we're talking about. Now we're looking at this from a mirror image and all that kind of happy fun stuff, but so he's the one we're pretending didn't work. So looking at this mess, what do? Well, we look to the labels. Okay. Now here's something I noticed. A little difference is that they actually call this the left oscillating clown versus what do they call it in the schematic? Left clown relay. This is your left clown relay. Okay, even though it says left oscillating clown. So what we're looking for is green on one side and red and green on the other. So looking at all these wires, what are we after? There's green right there, and look right there. There's red and green. So if this wasn't working, those are the contacts I would go for. We got green here, and red and green right there, okay? Know what you're doing before you start sticking your finger in there, and notice This is my wedding ring coming off. Okay, just years of working around electronics. I don't like to keep any metal on my hands while I do this. So what we're gonna do is, again, red and green, which goes to this switchblade. Now you hear something. See that contact? Let's see if we can see this. Let's see if we can see what's going on here. I'm gonna zoom in. And I'm pushing that same contact that I was just showing you. Look at that. As I push that in and make continuity, that clown drops, as it should. So, and remember, we're simulating that didn't work. So there's the contact, there's the switch on the relay that we were talking about. So the left clown, where's it at on the schematic? Left clown relay, that guy right there. Those are the switches that I was just pushing on, and you saw that when I closed that switch, it provided power to this coil, and the clown did what it was supposed to. So hopefully this video helped you. It was a pretty simple circuit, but it can be extremely confusing in this mess of stuff. So good luck. If you got any questions, use Clove. A lot of good resources on there, and hopefully you'll get things up and running. We'll talk to you later. All right, bye.